Shabbat shalom, everybody. Shabbat shalom. Can everybody stand for the reading of the Ten Commandments? And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath for the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Hallelujah.
All praises. Yeah, I'm actually moving in the opposite direction. I'm settling at the moment. I'm listening to Brian play, and I'm trying to settle, calm the nerves a little bit. Test. All praises. All right. How y'all doing? I'm gonna be like Zakane and make sure his presence is felt. We miss you, Ak. How y'all feeling today? That's what he usually do, ain't it? All praises. We jumping in and we starting another Parsha today. We picking up where we left off, but this kind of goes into another segment. All right. So, there we go. Today we are starting Parsha Noach. All right. So this particular segment is Genesis chapter 6, starting at verse 9, and it goes all the way through chapter 11, and at verse 32. All right. The quote unquote prophets portion of this, we're going to try to tie in at some point, is Isaiah 54:1 through Isaiah 55:5. And then the New Testament portion of this is Matthew 24:36 through 46 and 1 Peter 3:18 through 22. Like I said, we ain't going to, by any stretch of the imagination, touch on all of this today. We just going to get started today. But this is kind of over the next few weeks, we're going to be hitting all of these things. All right, so we good? All right, all praises. So, disclaimer, the scriptures expressed in the study are those of the author and not my own. Viewer discretion is advised. So, guidelines for the lesson, we want to let all things be done with decency and order. This will help us better serve one another. These lessons are intended to be interactive. I want to hear from y'all. So please ask all questions, make statements in a microphone so that everybody can hear you. We want to be mindful of the time, so please limit responses to roughly 60 seconds or less. This will give others an opportunity to ask questions and give input. We want to stay on topic. If you have questions that do not pertain to the topic of the lesson, please hold those until after the study. This will help us better serve your question and give it the proper attention it deserves. And if we move on from a point and you don't get a chance to ask your question or make your statement, if by the end of the study it still hasn't been addressed, please hold this until the end of the study and we can revisit it. All right. So keep in mind, we live right now on YouTube. All right. So everything that you say is going out in front of the whole world. All right. So just keep that in mind. All right, so Hebrews 4:11. Let us therefore do our utmost to enter into that rest, lest anyone fall after the same example of disobedience. For the word of Elohim is living and working and sharper than any two-edged sword, cutting through even to the dividing of being in spirit and of joints and marrow, and able to judge the thoughts and the intentions of the heart. And there is no creature hidden from his sight, but all are naked and laid bare before the eyes of him with whom is our account. All right, so again, before you know it, we're going to be right back at the top of the year, right? So just keep in mind, like I said, like I've been saying every week, that the things that we're sowing now are the things that we are going to be hoping to be reaping on a spiritual level, right? At the turn of the year, we want to start preparing and getting ourselves, our hearts, our minds, our vessels, our beings right now so that, we can enter into the next feast season the right way. All right, so we starting early. Okay. More technical difficulties. Great. There we go. Reason. Okay, there we go. So, Sis Dobby, are you still able to see this? Okay, all praises. All right, so these lessons are not directed at any one person or group, but are intended to be edifying and useful to all who have joined themselves to the covenant of. We're going to get there. Test. Okay. So these lessons are not directed at any one person or group, but are intended to be edifying and useful to all who have joined themselves to the covenant of Yahuwah. So the Father is impartial and none can avoid him, even the person who is tasked with presenting this lesson, which is me, myself. We are all held to this standard, and none of us are above his ways or corrections and reproofs. Hey, can you bump this up a little bit? Because I feel like I can barely hear me coming out of this speaker. Okay, all praises. It was loud before, but yeah, so I think we found a sweet spot. All right. So Romans 2:1. Therefore, O man, you are without excuse, everyone who judges, for in which you judge another, you condemn yourself, since you who judge practice the same wrongs. And we know that the judgment of Elohim is according to truth against those who practice such wrongs. And do you think, O man, you who judge those practicing such wrongs and doing the same, that you shall escape the judgment of Elohim? And then obviously the answer is no. All right. Wow. Okay. Okay. We're going to take a brief moment and we're going to try to get this together. Y'all bear with us online. Okay. Okay. Okay, all praises. Man, I appreciate y'all's patience. Okay, yeah, we still live and going. All right, so y'all ready?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
All right, all praises. So, there are accounts of a flood that destroyed humanity all over the world. Have y'all ever heard any non-biblical or like from other cultures, them talking about a flood that happened or anything like that? Right, so you can look all over the world, and it seems like no matter where you look, you will always find that somebody has some kind of flood story. Right now, it's differences in the details, but all of the ancient cultures seem to agree on that point, right? So that's kind of letting you know something happened, right? Okay, so in the ancient Near East especially, there are accounts of a great deluge or a great flood that destroyed mankind, such as the Babylonian epic of Gilgamesh and the Enuma Elish. So has anybody ever heard of those? We touched on them before, but Babylon had a flood story, right? Now their flood story is a little bit different, but they had one, okay? Or they had a few actually. So these, however, differ in detail from the flood. In the case of the epic of Gilgamesh, the creator deity is depicted as creating the flood to destroy mankind because of a coldness in his heart, killing them not because of unrighteousness, but because they were too loud and interrupted his sleep. Do y'all believe that about Yahuwah? Right, so this is far from his character. But you'll see that once you start hearing this flood story in other cultures and you start hearing them tell the story, it kind of paints them as being the good guys and the Most High as being the bad guy, right? So you see how the story gets flipped and twisted when you start to get it from anywhere that's not the source, not the Father, right? So the man who survives the flood then looks on a great city and realizes that mankind can live forever through his building a name for himself and through his great cities and culture. So keep in mind what we looked at last week with Cain, right? So when we looked at Cain, what did Cain do when he got sent to the land of Nod? He went there and he started to build a city, and then he started to name all of those cities after his offspring to make a name for himself, right? So you're starting to see a pattern here with now, again, how Babylon, in the story of the Babylonians, they said the exact same thing, right? That, hey, when the flood happened, after everything got rebooted, well, we can't live forever eternally with the Most High, but what we can do is we can make a name for ourselves here on this earth, and we can live forever that way, right? So, again, I'm bringing all of these details out now because eventually we're going to get to Tower of Babel. Well, what led to this mindset? How did they get here? Right? So remember what we saw man started to do in the days of Seth. Perhaps this is the start of the alternative perspectives on the various flood accounts, especially in the ancient Near East. So in the scriptures, however, we see the character of Yahuwah for who he is, and we see the character of man for what it is, right? So we're starting to get a glimpse of, well, no, the Father is always righteous, but it's mankind that kind of messes things up, right? So the account of Bereshit shows Elohim as being grieved by having to destroy the earth, and as merciful by sparing Noah and his family to replenish the earth. All right, so Genesis 6:6, it says, and Yahuwah repented, or better would be he relented, that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart, right? So the destruction was not something that he wanted to do. Right, we kind of, as mankind, kind of forced his hand into that. So we're gonna get into the details of it, because you got to ask: has anybody ever asked the question, like, how bad was it? Like, it had to be really, really bad for him to look down and just be like, "There is no saving this. There's only 8 people that I'm gonna let make it through this, and everything else, including the animals, everything has to get wiped out, and we got to start this over." It had to be really, really bad, y'all. Now, mind you, our eyes see wickedness and evil, I mean, day to day, on a daily basis, right? The poor are oppressed. I mean, there's no shortage of idolatry. I mean, it's no shortage of injustice. I mean, like everywhere, we don't have to search far to find wickedness. Right? That's it. Just turn on the TV, turn on the internet, scroll. That's all you got to do. Sometimes just open up your window. Like, it's as simple as that, right? And yet, we still here, and he's still allowing this to continue as it's going. So that's letting you know how bad it really had to be. Because if it's as bad as it is now, he's still allowing things to continue in his mercy. For him to get to the point where it's like, okay, no, I'm done with this, and we just got to wipe it out and start over, it really had to be bad. All right, so Genesis 4:26. So it says, and to Seth, to him also a son was born, and he called his name Enosh, and it was begun. And that word for begun, if y'all remember last week, we looked at it, is kalal, which means to profane, to wound, to make common, to pollute, to defile. They began to do this when they called on the name of Yahuwah, right? So this was in the days of Seth. Now, it's going to go from Seth to all those generations till you finally get to the point of Noah. It's a lot of time, right? If you go back and you actually do the math on that, we talking about like 16, at the very least 1,600 years, right? Like at the very least, depending on which account you're looking at. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of time for wickedness to increase, right? So now we're going to jump to Genesis 5:25. All right. So it says, and Methuselah lived 187 years and brought forth Lamech. And he brought forth Lamech, Methuselah. And after he brought forth Lamech, Methuselah lived 782 years and brought forth sons and daughters. So all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. And Lamech lived 182 years and brought forth a son, and called his name Noah, saying, this one does comfort us concerning our work and the toil of our hands, because the ground which Yahuwah has cursed. All right, so when did the ground get cursed? So back in we looked at that a couple weeks ago, right? So in Genesis 3:17, it says, and to the man he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife and have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, saying, do not eat of it, curses the ground because of you. In toil you are to eat of it all the days of your life, and the ground shall bring forth thorns and thistles for you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you are to eat bread until you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, for dust you are, and in dust you shall return. It blanked out?
No, it didn't change over.
Okay.
It just takes a minute sometimes.
Yeah, it might. Give it some time and let's see if it does it. Make sure I'm still. Yeah, it's still. No, that's not gonna fix that. I mean. Okay, now let me know if what you see. Did it change? Okay, all praises. Okay, so we understand that this curse on earth seems to be something that we would call a generational curse, right? Like we see that it didn't just stop with Adam, but everybody after Adam is suffering from this curse. Okay? There was 9 generations that went from Adam into the days of Noah. Okay? So generation to generation to generation to generation, they're dealing with this curse. We finally get to Noah, and now you see where his father is saying, hey, this one is going to we're going to see comfort in this day, right? We're going to get some alleviation from these curses, all right? Okay. So now let me ask y'all a question. What generally happens when large populations of people have to share too few resources, for instance, bread? Hold on, wait a second. Can we get him a mic? If you don't mind saying it in the mic so that the people can hear you.
War.
We still got to have you in the mic.
War.
Okay, so war, okay. Anybody got anything else to add to that? Chaos.
More sinning.
Okay. More sinning, she said.
Conflicts.
Conflicts. Discourse. Theft. Very good. We got a small hand in the back. All praises.
Fighting.
Fighting. Very good. Okay, so we all cooking with hot grease. All right. So we know when resources get scarce, and like I'm a have not, but you a have. Go ahead. What you got? Say that one more time. All praises. Yeah, it's coming your way.
Okay, dealing with today's current situations, I don't think a lot of people are preparing for these kind of situations, such as like famine. So you don't have many people with farmland or anything like that, or I want to say crops. It's more so trend. So it's kind of like in the days of the Noah. So that's all.
All praises. Like Steve. Oh, Yakina. My bad. I didn't see you.
The fall of order and laws, the lack of food and stuff, the fall of society in general. It's every man and woman for himself, basically.
All praises.
Like the brother was saying, it's you see resources, oil, wars for oil. Now precious metals. Why we have to have internal corruption through that society, puppet kings, dictatorships being funded by outside powers.
All praises. So y'all seeing how like literally nothing is new under the sun. You got something, Sister Allison?
Yeah, I was gonna say home invasions.
Okay, all praises. Like we may as well get it all above board because we're going in a direction. Okay, so it doesn't get better for society, right? It gets worse. Okay? So how do people behave when there are too few resources to go around? Is it human nature to share and be kind? Like even a child, like it's mine, right? Or is it more likely that people will fight over the resources that are available and try to take all of it for themselves? Right? So remember, the land is now cursed for Adam's sake. All right, we paint a picture and we bring in all of this into context because I want to bring what we're reading in these days to reality, right? The land does not easily produce, and Genesis 3:17 would seem to indicate that bread would not easily be obtained, right? It's hard work to get an increase out of the land, right? So it would be very hard labor to get enough produce out of the land to sustain yourself or a family. All right, so keep that in mind. Does anybody know the word for bread in Hebrew? Okay, let's have Ox Steve. My bad.
Lehem.
All right, so lechem, right? That's the word for bread. So we know Bethlehem, right? We've heard of Bethlehem. Bethlehem literally means house of bread. All right, so should be an easy way for us to remember it, right? It means bread. So Genesis 3:19, by the sweat of your face you are to eat bread until you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, for dust you are, and for dust you shall return. The word for bread there is what Steve just said, H3899, lechem. All right, so it's from H3898, food for a man or a beast, especially bread, right, or grain for making it. All right, so this is our Hebrew word for bread. In biblical Hebraic thought, war, you were spot on, my man, spot on. War was fought over bread or the lack thereof. All right. So in Hebrew, the root of the word for war is the same as the word for bread. All right. So grammatically, the letter mem is prefixed to nouns, and by itself, it means from. It indicates that one thing comes from another thing. In this case, war comes from bread or a lack thereof. All right. So H3899, that's lechem, right? That's what we just saw. That's the word for bread. H3898 is the root of this word. It's there in the middle. To feed on, to consume, by implication, to battle as destruction, devour, to eat, fighting, to overcome, to prevail, to make war, or to be warring. All right. And then our word for the noun war is milchama. A mil is what's circled there, is added to the beginning of that word. And if y'all look at those letters in red, all of those letters in red are all the same three letters. All right, so milchama from H3898, which is the one in the center, both of those come from the same root. All right, in the sense of fighting, a battle, that is engagement, generally war, that is warfare, a battle, a fight, right? So war comes from a lack of bread, a lack of resources. And when there's not enough to go around, people fight for what is available. All right. So we can see how wars were fought over a fear that neighboring nations would take from one's bread and resources in the Torah. You can see this play out in the Torah, Numbers 21 and 21. And Israel sent messengers to Sihon, the king of the Amorites, saying, let me pass through your land. Now notice what Moses is going to say. He says, we shall not turn off into your fields or your vineyards. It's no reason to turn us away. We don't need any of your resources, right? We shall not drink water from your wells, but go by the king's highway until we have passed over your border. Okay? But Sihon would not allow Israel to pass through his border. So Sihon gathered all his people together and went out against Israel in the wilderness and came to Yahatz and fought against Israel. Right? So he's afraid. No, if we let all those people, remember, it was a lot of people out in this wilderness. If we let those people pass through our land, they're going to clean us out. So instead, no, you cannot pass through this land and we're going to fight you over it, right? Wars are always fought over the resources. Like Ak was bringing out, nothing's new under the sun. If they feel like there's a lack of oil somewhere or something that we can use, we might start up a war out of them, of weapons of mass destruction. Come to find out they never existed. Go ahead, Ak.
I was about to say that how a lot of European nations, they start these wars. I mean, they're talking about attacking Venezuela.
Venezuela, yeah.
Venezuela, yeah.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry. But just how they would create a scenario to have war because of the resources that they want.
Mm-hmm.
And you see how a lot of the African nations now are kicking out these foreign countries because they was taking the resources.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how, but putting puppet leaders in. But yeah, just the art of war.
Mm-hmm. All praises. So again, you can imagine the state of the world leading into why the flood has to be, why he has to bring the flood, right? It's a lot of violence that's taking place in the land because there's a scarcity of bread. We are under this curse that is making it very difficult to get increase out of the land, right? So now we're going to dig into some nuanced things too, because what we're going to see is that there is a possibility that there's a slight difference between the severity of how things were before the flood and how they were after the flood. Okay, so it's highly likely that it was even more severe and more difficult prior to the flood than it was after the flood, right? Which is why they said Noah is we're in his days, we're going to see rest from this, right? All right, so can we see how difficulty in having enough bread might have led to violence in the days of Noah? When bread is hard to come by, people steal more, people fight more to preserve what they have. In this sort of environment, the strong survive and the weak suffer. Those who are stronger and can take things by force become rich, and they have their way with everybody else, and everybody else suffers because of them, right? All right, so let me ask y'all. I'm going to read this first, and then I'm going to ask y'all. So Matthew 24:36, it says, "But concerning that day and the hour, no one knows." Now, this is Mashiach being asked, well, hey, what about the days of the end? Right? When it's all said and done, what about the end? He said, "Not even the messengers of the heavens, but my Father only." Right? So he's saying, hey, nobody knows that day or that hour. Right? Matthew 24:37, "And as the days of Noah, so also shall the coming of the Son of Man, or the Son of Adam, be." Now, we don't know the day or the hour, right? But what we do know is that there's going to be some similarity between the days of Noah and whatever that end time is, okay? Verse 38, "For as they were in the days before the flood, eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark. And they did not know until the flood came and took them all away. So also shall the coming of the Son of Adam be. Then two shall be in the field, the one is taken and the one is left. Two women shall be grinding at the mill, one is taken and one is left. Watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your master is coming. And know this, that if the master of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched and not allowed his house to be broken into. Because of this, be ready too, for the Son of Adam is coming at an hour when you do not expect him." All right. So he said a whole lot right there, right? But like I said, what we can all agree on is that whatever this time of the end, whenever that is, it's going to look a whole lot like the days of Noah, right? So let me ask y'all, how were the days of Noah? Okay, so drinking, marrying. Well, I'm married, sis. I've been married a long time. Is there anything wrong with that? Okay, is it?
It's just saying normal things will be going on.
Okay, so
So killings, evil things.
all praises.
Well, hello?
Yeah, you good, sis.
Okay, so just as the days of Noah, so shall he come. So, like in those times, it just said they will be marrying and giving in marriage. I mean, I'll say basically normal things. But then there's other things that was unorthodox going on in those times. There were abominable things going on in that time. And which are happening now. Okay, but I will say I would have said 10th power, but I would say 100th power, because since then knowledge has increased, and so therefore technology is more advanced. So the things that would be comparable back then is just magnified more, just because of technology that we would say would be considered abominable. So back then, there were same-sex going on, and so now it's that times magnified 10 to 100 power. Is it's so much that could be said. So you could have an idea that we are in the days of Noah right now, just worse.
Okay, all praises. I don't know which one of y'all was first. Okay, you there? So yeah, all praises.
I don't want to get ahead. I was getting ready to read Genesis 6 and 5. I was going to say what y'all saw about the days.
We going there, but you have at it.
It says, and Yahuwah saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, like it is now, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And he repented that he made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. So he said he will destroy the man that he created from the face of the earth. Because it made him sad that he made him, because they was out here cutting up.
All praises. So we starting to see that we ain't too far off, right? Ain't nothing new under the sun. Go ahead, Doc.
It's Genesis 6, right before Noah, the flood. I know you're probably going to get more into Enoch, the book of Enoch. And Genesis 6, and it came to pass when men began to multiply upon the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of Yah saw the daughters of Adam, that they were fair, and they took wives of all the which they chose. And Yah said, my Ruach shall not always strive with Adam, for that he is also flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. And there was giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of Yah came unto the daughters of men and bare children with them. The same became the mighty men of old, men of renown, the Nephilim and all that. So pretty sure those were the days. DNA manipulation, with the type of technology that we have present today. I worked at an Intel plant, and we were literally told that this division of the plant was called the bioengineering, the biotech laboratory, where these microchips were so small, just the microscope that they had us use to work on these chips were $50,000. Talking about the nanotechnology, biotechnology. What's biology and technology doing there? You're manipulating DNA. Why nano measurement? Because that's the DNA. That's where you could actually see DNA. What a coincidence that these microchips are the same size, and then you go on down the line with the level of technology that people think this is a microchip that you could see. No, this is going to be several different types of technologies in one syringe.
All praises. So now, keep in mind, like I said, we gonna keep going. But go ahead.
I was going to kind of say we're kind of just catching up to what they was already doing, because they was already doing it. We're just kind of catching up. All those it's kind of like they introduce a little bit more and more to they kind of desensitize everybody so they can keep bringing stuff out or show to add new stuff to where people are negligent and not paying any attention. But they had already been taught how to do all this that we think is new technology now. And then to add on what he was saying, my ex-husband, he was there's a place out at Wright Pat, and he was supposed to work out there as security. And
Don't get us banned now, sis.
huh?
I said, don't get us banned now.
Well,
Giving up the governmental secrets.
He didn't know.
Go ahead. I'm
just
teasing.
know
I'm
that
teasing.
Where he was supposed to be working at, they told him to look straight ahead, and basically, if he didn't look straight ahead, if he tried to glance off to the side, they was gonna crack him in the head with the gun to take him out.
Yeah, you don't see something he wasn't supposed to see.
He was going through with armed, guards, and so needs to say he didn't work there after he, because you're gonna be trying to, see some stuff. But yeah, that was back in the '80s.
So we gonna dig into all of these things, right? Right now we just gathering information. I want to hear what's in the room. All right, Nadabia. Oh, Ryan, did you have something? No. Okay. All praises. Yeah.
I just wanted to add corruption and violence.
All praises. All praises. So, all right. So, like I said, how were the days of Noah? The days of Noah were used as a way to measure, right, the time of the destruction that was near. So remember, the creation had to be very corrupt to destroy all that Elohim created. And remember, when he created it, he said it was what? It was good. It was very good. So it had to be really, really bad for him to look down on it and really be far off from what he said was good, for him to look down and be like, wipe this all out. Start this all over. Okay, so now we getting into Genesis 6, all right, the days of Noah. So, and it came to be when man began to increase on the face of the earth and daughters were born to them, that the sons of Elohim saw the daughters of men, that they were good, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose. And Yahuwah said, my spirit shall not strive with man forever, and his going astray, he is flesh, and his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days. And also afterward, when the sons of Elohim came into to the daughters of men, and they bore children to them, those were the mighty men who were of old, the men of name. And Yahuwah saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. That means it's no good. It's just only evil continually. You don't give evil a break. You just meditate on evil, right? And Yahuwah was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. And Yahuwah said, I am going to wipe off man, whom I have created from the face of the ground, both man and beast, creeping creature and the birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them. Why the animals? They had to be messed up too, right? Okay. But Noah found favor in the eyes of Yahuwah, right? So, but Noah, something about Noah is different, and he found this favor, this grace, right? All right, so we got some questions that I want us to start pondering, all right? Who are the sons of Elohim in this context? Okay, I'm not putting this out to the room because for the sake of time, I'm gonna keep going because we're gonna answer it. But again, these are rhetorical. I'm putting them out in the room, okay? Who are the sons of Elohim in this context? Who are the daughters of men in this context? Why would the sons of Elohim joining with the daughters of men be a problem in the eyes of the Most High? Why did this act cause Elohim to shorten the lifespan of mankind? Who/what are the Nephilim? And what caused Noah to find favor in the eyes of Elohim? What about him was different? Okay, so that's tempting. I'm gonna leave it alone. Okay, so the Genesis text itself gives a brief overview of the days of Noah, but it doesn't lend itself to the details. Well, we all agree, right? Pretty much what we just read in those first 8 verses is as deep as it gets, and then we jump into the flood. So we don't really get details of what made him look down on the earth and say, wipe it all, like destroy it all, right? We just know the animals had to get destroyed, land had to get destroyed. Everything had to get cleansed. It had to be real, real bad, and it had to be real, real corrupted, right? So here's my question. Is there a way that we can answer these questions without having to lean too much on our own understanding, right? So this is what we're going to attempt to do today, all right? Sons of Elohim. We're going to start there. All right. So the answer is yes. There is much to glean from both canonical and non-canonical texts that go into more detail about the days of Noah. From here, I want to first go through the canonical texts, such as the Old Testament and New Testament references. But then after that, I'm going to explore some of the things in the non-canonical texts that are in harmony with the canonical text to shed more light on this Parsha. All right, so we will see how in many cases, especially with the New Testament writings, they depend on these non-canonical texts and show that the case can be made that the New Testament writers depended on these extra biblical texts for their own biblical worldview pertaining to this topic. All right, so just strap in your seatbelts. We're going to get there. I said a whole lot, but we're going to get there. All right. Before I do that, has anybody ever heard, because I heard in a room when I said, well, who are the sons of Elohim in this context? I heard, well, it's the angels. So it's, say it one more time. Okay, so it's sons. By that, are you saying like, okay, angels. So, okay, all praises. So we there with angels, right? Okay, so we good there. We heard angels. Has anybody ever heard? Okay,
The leaders, the world leaders at that time.
Okay.
Governors.
So I don't know if y'all could, world leaders at that time, governors. So has anybody ever heard it presented that the sons of Elohim were descendants from Cain? Okay, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just trying to get a feel for the temperature in the room, so that way I know how to navigate as we continue through the conversation. So nobody in here has heard that. So if no, okay, so he's heard it. Okay, but you wouldn't necessarily agree with it, right?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It would have you ponder and think about, I mean, yes, Cain did kill Abel, and what happened to his lineage afterwards, after he was pretty much marked.
Okay, so all praises. So you have heard that as a possibility, that everything in this scenario is talking about
Where did he go?
people. You got the group from Cain, and then you got the sons of Adam in this case, or in this context, that they will say is the righteous ones in the world, and then, or the bloodline of Seth, and then you have the bloodline of Seth that was mixing with the bloodline of Cain, and then this is what the father had a problem with, right? So that's, go ahead.
So yeah, I've dialogued with this with many actual camps, believed in the Cain doctrine, and that even take it further, that he must have snuck in the boat itself. But we could clearly see in the Hebrew what it would have directly said the sons of Cain, but it went straight to the root, the sons of Adam, or saw the daughters of Adam, right? And then the sons of Elohim, it would have said the sons of Cain. But how would they have been the sons of Elohim if they were away, not following that commandment at that time?
So all praises. So again, I'm trying to, it's a lot of variation. We was talking about this earlier before we jumped into the live. Like when we start looking at doctrines and things like that that exist within our community, it's a lot of stuff that's out there, right? So my goal is to try to bring as much information as I possibly can, so that we can be as knowledgeable as we can be when we trying to sift through some of this stuff, okay? So that's one take on it. And then the other take on it is that the sons of Elohim is talking about angelic angels, right? And then the daughters of man is the daughters of Adam, as it is in the Hebrew, and that these are mankind, and that something happened between these two, okay? So we just gonna keep going. Like I said, strap on your seatbelt, but by the end, I promise we gonna land a plane, all right? Okay, so Who are the sons of Elohim in this context? We're going to try to answer this. Genesis 6:1 and 2. And it came to be when the men began to increase on the face of the earth. So mankind, right? Mankind is starting to increase on the earth. And daughters were born to them, that the sons of Elohim, not the sons of Adam, but the sons of Elohim, saw the daughters of Adam, or the daughters of men, that they were good. And they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose. Okay? All praises. So the term sons of Elohim is a phrase that is used to speak of both natural man and of angels. Okay? So I don't want to diminish the fact that, we're called in some places, we're sons of Elohim, right? We born again and then we become sons of the Most High, right? So, but is that what's happening in this context? No. Right? Okay. So, go ahead, Ike.
And you can see it right there in the first verse that men, or the sons of Adam and the son and his daughters of Adam, are right there in the beginning. But then you see a different character come in second verse.
All praises. All praises. So we just slow walking this, right? Because like I said, there are a lot of doctrines that are out there, right? And on the surface, they sound good, but is it really the truth though? Right? So in the book of Job, it speaks of a group of divine beings that sit in the council of Elohim. We went over this a couple of weeks ago, so I'm not going to spend too much time here. But I did want us to see it, right? Now, there was a day when the sons of Elohim, right? These are the sons of Elohim. They came to present themselves before Yahuwah, and Satan also came among them. And then the whole story of Job takes off from that point, right? So these sons in this case is not talking about mankind or descendants of Cain or anything like that. This is talking about some angelic beings, right? Okay. Job 38:4. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? We talking about in creation, right? Declare if you have understanding. Who has laid the measures thereof, if you know? Or who has stretched out the line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened, and who laid the cornerstone thereof? When the morning stars sang together and the sons of Elohim shouted for joy, right? So this is before the man is made, right? This is in the foundations of the earth, right? When he's creating. Okay, so we're gonna keep moving. Psalm 82:1. Elohim stands in the congregation of El. He judges in the midst of the Elohim. How long would you judge perversely and show partiality to the wrong? Selah. Give right ruling to the poor and fatherless. Do right to the afflicted and needy. Rescue the poor and needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wrong. They do not know, nor do they understand. They walk about in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are shaken. Right, so he established the foundations of the earth in a certain way. And then when he did this, these same sons of Elohim, they shouted for joy. But now, because they're doing some injustice in the earth, now these very foundations are shaken. Okay, something about this divine order, this balance has been disrupted. Okay, so Psalm 82 verse 6, it says, I said, you are Elohim, and all of you are sons of the Most High, but as men you die and fall as one of the heads. Arise, O Elohim, judge the earth, for you shall possess all the nations. All right, and keep in mind, him possessing all the nations, this is a big deal. Like I said, we slow walking this, because at this point we just dealing with mankind, but we're going to get to a point to where chapter 12 is going to come, and we're going to start dealing with Abraham, and from that point forward we're dealing with Israel. So there's a reason why Israel is going to be chosen, and then now that Israel is chosen, they're going to have a duty to restoring this balance throughout the rest of the world, and they have a duty to be a light to the what? To the nations, right? So he said, I'm going to set you above all the nations of the earth. You're a peculiar treasure, right? But then he also said, hey, y'all, don't get it twisted, because all the earth is what? All the earth is mine, right? So, again, keep all of this in mind. Job 4:12, he says, now a thing was secretly brought to me, and my ear received a little thereof. In thoughts from the visions of the night when deep sleep falls on men. Fear came upon me and trembling, which made all my bones to shake. Then a ruach, or then a spirit, passed before my face, and the hair of my flesh stood up. It stood still, but I could not discern the form thereof. An image was before my eyes. There was silence, and I heard a voice saying, shall mortal man be more just than Elua? Shall a man be more pure than his maker? Behold, he puts no trust in his servants, and his angels he charged with folly. What is it? When did he charge his angels with folly, and why would he have to do that? Okay, we're going to come here in the corner. All praises. Talk down, Michael.
When his sons made it with man.
Say that one more time.
When his son made it with man's daughter.
Okay, all praises. So we paint that picture, right? All praises. So all praises. We cooking with hot grease. So how much less in them that dwell in houses of clay, whose foundation is in the dust, which are crushed before the moth. So remember what Mashiach said earlier in Matthew 24. But at the day, at an hour, no man knows. No, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. Could there be a reason why he does not trust the angels? Right? Is there a reason why he's like, no, I'm keeping a lid on this. I'm not telling them, I'm not trusting them with this because I can't trust all of them. Right? They have free will just like we have free will. Right? Remember, we looked in the beginning of this. Like I said, we're going to start connecting dots. We talked about how in the beginning there was Elohim, and they had this conversation, and there's this divine council, and we broke down these same verses and showed how maybe not so much a trinity, but more so that there's a divine council, a group of Elohim, if you will. There's the Most High Elohim, and then there's sons of Elohim, right? And in their image and likeness, mankind was made, right? So there's some similarity. They got free will just like we got free will, right? Go ahead, Doc.
And it's like as we keep going along, you see in that when you brought up the Epic of Gilgamesh and how they had many strong ones where polytheism versus monotheism is separating within Abraham and Nimrod in itself afterwards. Is from their perspective, they're making it seem with the epic that you showed. This is a evil deity that we woke him up and now he wants to flood the earth. So as we see in the flood, we see in two different perspectives, from those who believe in many deities being whatever, and one singular deity being the creator with a divine council underneath.
Mm-hmm. All praises.
And that also happens like with wars and disagreements. You have the loser's point of view and then the winner's point of view. Mm-hmm. And it's completely different. Mm-hmm. Like even today, if you go see Germany's point of view and then you see America's point of view, it's completely different.
Mm-hmm. You know, they say history is his story. It's always, the victor, right? Whoever won the battle is who tells the story, right? So all praises. So could this be due to something that previously occurred? When did he charge his angels with folly? And could this be referring, at least in part, to what happened in the days of Noah? All right. All right. So, okay, we're going to keep moving. So is it a possibility that the sons of Elohim could refer to some kind of angelic entity based on the information we just saw within the canonical text? Right, so I'm not going to read these two verses again, Genesis 6 and 1 and 2. But if this is the case, then it would seem to suggest that the sons of Elohim or angelic entities started to, I'm going to air quote, interact with the daughters of men. Okay? So now it is worth pointing out that the New Testament writers seem to agree with this biblical worldview. Right, so there seems to be a belief in the idea that there were angels that left their realm to have interactions, I'm using that term loosely, with the daughters of Adam. All right. So Jude, all right, letter of Jude. So Jude 1 and 3. All right, so it says, Beloved, when I gave all diligence to write unto you of the common salvation, it was needful for me to write unto you and exhort you that you should earnestly contend for the belief which was once delivered to the saints, or the set apart ones, the Kodashim. For there are certain men crept in unawares, who were before of old ordained to this condemnation, wicked men, turning the grace of our Yah into lasciviousness, and denying the only Adonai Yahuwah and our Adonai Yahusha HaMashiach. I will therefore put you in remembrance, though you once knew this, how that Yahuwah, having saved the people out of the land of Egypt, or Mizraim, afterward destroyed them that believed not. Here's the interesting part, verse 6. And the angels, which did not guard their first estate, but left their own habitation, he has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day. So let me ask y'all, where does it say this in the Old Testament? Okay, so all praises.
In the first book and second book of Enoch, which found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and is also still part of the canon in the Ethiopian Bible.
Okay, all praises. So we're going to get there. But with our canon, our the quote-unquote canon that's over here on this side of it's not there, right? We can all agree with that part, right? It's not there. You're not going to find that. All right, so where does it say that the angels that left their own habitation are bound in chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day? It does not say that. You can't find it anywhere, right? How does Jude know this if it's not written in the canonical text? Okay, so I'm hearing. Okay, y'all playing hot potato with the mic now. Okay.
The word says it's given unto us to know the mysteries of the kingdom. So if you ask him for wisdom, if you ask him for understanding, if you ask him to expound on something in the script that you cannot find, he'll give it to you.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, if he's willing.
Excellent. All praises. Sister Kim.
So to the question, where does it say that the angels that left their own habitation? Okay, so which angels are you referring to?
I'm strictly referring to whatever it is that Jude is referring to. We haven't even got to that point yet, but just whatever. Where can we find this anywhere?
Only thing that comes to mind for me would be Revelation 16, I believe. It talks about the angels bound at Euphrates.
Uh-huh.
So that's the only thing I can think of.
All praises. So we'll touch on that, but that's, like you said, that's New Testament, right? And we know Revelation was written after Jude, right? So this was something that they had to have known prior to, right?
So you would have to interpret it as Genesis chapter 6, when the sons of Elohim came down to the daughters of Adam, and the Nephilim were born.
Okay, all praises. So Genesis 6, we saw those first 8 verses. It touches, but it don't say nothing about, like, this is a very specific judgment and a very specific thing, that they are somewhere in darkness, bound in chains, right? You got something, Ryan?
Nah, I'll wait.
Okay, all praises. So now, since Ryan, you got your book open, I'm gonna ask you to do me a favor. Can you read Jude and read verse 9 for me?
It says, Yet Michael, the archangel, when contending with the devil, he disputed about the body of Moses, durst not bring against him a railing accusation, but said, the Lord rebuke thee. Keep going.
Okay. So my bad.
Oh, you good.
We was getting the stream together. Read that one more time for my sake.
Okay. Yet Michael, the archangel, when contending with the devil, he disputed about the body of Moses, durst not bring against him a railing accusation, but said, the Lord rebuke thee.
So Jude is saying that Michael, the archangel Michael, was fighting with Hashatan over the body of Moses. Where is that in the Old Testament text? Can we find anything where it talks about angel coming down and fighting with the devil over Moses' body?
It's not in this canon. It's not in our canon that we have, but it's in one of the extra biblical books of Josh.
Okay, so all praises. So what I'm going this route because I'm trying to show us just how much the New Testament worldview of the days of Noah and the flood is reliant upon things that are not in the quote unquote canon, right? But it does not mean that they don't believe these things. And it doesn't mean that they're not utilizing and looking at these texts, right? So that's where I'm going with this, is that you'll see that even in the New Testament, that this is what their idea was of how they believe things to have gone, right? So even though it's not in the quote unquote like we don't see that they're having any issue. Jude is quoting these things, and it's going to keep going. He's going to keep going. The whole letter of Jude is nothing but pretty much quotes and references to stuff that's not in our quote-unquote Old Testament, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it was not part of a corpus of spiritual texts that they had in their day, okay? Like I said, keep the seatbelt strapped on. We're going to keep going, all right? 2 Peter, Jude's not the only one, right? Now, Jude, we know his name was Yehuda, right? Okay. I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm gonna keep going. All right. So, 2 Peter 2:4. For if Yah spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down into Sheol, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be watched unto the judgment of anguish, and spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the wicked. So now we're starting to see that Peter's saying the same thing that Jude was just talking about, right? So this is common knowledge. Everybody seems to understand in this day about this judgment and chains, and where are they getting this from? Witness. You said witness? Okay, like we're gonna see what some of these quote unquote witnesses are, right? Like Steve brought out earlier. We're gonna keep going. All right, so it says, and turning over the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them with an overthrow, making them an example unto those that after should live in wickedness, and delivered just Lot, vexed with the filthy conversation of the Torahless or the lawless, for that righteous man dwelling among them, and seeing and hearing, vexed his righteous soul from day to day with their lawless deeds. Yahuwah knows how to deliver his merciful, his saints, out of temptations, and to reserve the unjust to the day of judgment, to be punished. Where again is this in an Old Testament that he's reserving them, right? They bound in chains and he's reserving them until the day of judgment. Where is this at? But yet we see that the writers of the New Testament, they believe this, right? So we're gonna keep digging. So Jude isn't the only one, like I said, to speak on this information, but it almost seems as though it is common knowledge that was commonly accepted, the fact that the flood occurred because the angels, the sons of Elohim, had unlawful interactions with the daughters of Adam, right? So we just saw Jude, we just saw that the angels left their first estate, and when they left their own habitation, they began to intermingle with mankind, and then this is what brought on the flood, right? And that the angels, quote unquote, whoever these sons of Elohim are, that their judgment when they did this, somehow they know that they were bound in chains in darkness, and they're waiting until the day of judgment. But we're gonna get into how they know this, but again, we gathering the facts. Is everybody with me so far? Okay, all praises. So keep in mind, if these are bound in chains waiting for judgment for leaving their dwelling to interact with mankind, and they have been bound in chains since they did this, right? So we know that the flood happened thousands of years before this was written, and both Jude and Peter are both saying what? That they are still in chains, waiting until the day of judgment. So if those angels that did that are still bound in chains, I got a question for you. Who are the unclean spirits that would seem to have freedom to roam and possess the earth until the appointed time? Don't answer that yet. Don't answer it. Yeah, don't answer it. Don't answer it. We're going to get there, but I want y'all to start pondering the question because it's a lot of unclean spirits. You can still see evil spirits today. If they bound in chains waiting for the judgment because they did this, it has to be more than just these ones that they're talking about, right? Okay, all praises. So biblical scholars agree that these claims seem to have a literary reliance on the text of 1 Enoch, right? So they're saying that Jude and Peter, they're both relying on the text of 1 Enoch. And this is where they're getting this from, right? So this point becomes clear when we look at the text of Jude as he clearly quotes the first chapter of the first book of Enoch, right? So this is for all of, well, we've been over this before, but just in case, right? Jude 1:14, it says, "In Enoch, the seventh from Adam, prophesied of thee, saying, Behold, Yahuwah comes with 10,000s of his holy ones, to execute judgment upon all, and to convince all that are wicked among them of all their wicked deeds, which they have wickedly committed, and all of their hard speeches, which the wicked sinners have spoken against him." Okay? So, now, he said that Enoch did what? He prophesied of these. Where is this prophecy of Enoch? He's saying, hey, we know that Enoch, he prophesied this, but where is that in the Old Testament? You're not going to find it, right? We get one verse about Enoch. That's it, right? So, but he knows something, right? He's getting this from somewhere, okay? First Enoch, this is the first book in Enoch, verse 9. It says, "And behold, Jude 1:14. It's the same. He's quoting it word for word. Okay. So it says, "Behold, he comes with 10,000s of his holy ones to execute judgment upon them and to destroy the wicked and to contend with all flesh concerning everything that sinners and the wicked have done and wrought against him." All right. So same. Jude he's quoting this, right? So in fact, the New Testament writers seem to be familiar with various traditions regarding Enoch that are not necessarily explicitly written in the canonical text. Okay, so Hebrews 11:5, "By belief Enoch was translated that he should not see death, and was not found because Yahuwah had translated him. For before his translation, he had this testimony that he pleased Yah." Right? Like, it's a far stretch from Genesis 5:24. It's the only thing that we get is, "And Enoch walked with Elohim, then he was no more, for Elohim took him." Right? So I could interpret that in a whole number of ways, right? Say that one more time. I still didn't get you. He abducted him. Okay, he abducted him. Okay, I'll pray. So, Sister Kim. Michael. Sister Kim. Oh, all praises. Y'all tag teaming. Michael, I know your legs ain't, your feet ain't got that wore out that fast, have they? You young. You got shoes on. Are you on?
Okay. I haven't heard anyone consider the Ruach HaKodesh as to that question where Jude got it from. So it's highly possibly that it was divinely given to him via the Ruach.
Okay.
I mean, that's the only thing, because Jude is a part of the canonical, the Most High's word from Genesis to Revelation. So if we don't have reference that Jude got this specifically from, what we're used to getting, quotes that we see often, that we reference, the only thing I would have to allude it to is the Ruach HaKodesh.
Okay, so let me ask you this. I'm going to push back just a little bit. And I'm not mad with that at all, not by any stretch of the imagination. But this is a word-for-word quote. Is it possible that he just read it?
Who, Jude?
Jude.
And you're saying from the book of Enoch?
from the book of Enoch? Is it literally word for word? Is it possible that he just read it?
The non-canonical book of Enoch?
The first book of Enoch.
Okay, I'm gonna end it there.
All praises. I'm just throwing it out there, right? So we're I guess what I'm saying is that we are relying on a lot of spiritual interference for something that is not necessary, because this is a book that is popular in their day. Like the first book of Enoch is popular in their day. Like, it's everywhere. But go ahead.
And this is when we get into the actual detail of what we're talking about as far as when we say in the word canon. Because, okay, so obviously the big canon that everybody follows is the Roman Catholic Church's version of the canon. Because even they changed their own canon. The first King James in 1611 comes with the extra biblical apocrypha books. But then what happened in 1769 that they took those out, and now we have a mainstream KJV that everybody uses that doesn't have Maccabees, that doesn't have from the original canon, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's number one. But yet we see scientific evidence of what these people's worldview was when the Dead Sea Scrolls, the oldest scrolls, are consistent, 1st and 2 Enoch.
We're going to get there. That's on the next slide, actually. So,
I don't even need it.
What I will say is, understand that in the days when they was writing these scrolls and these letters, it's not like it is today, right? Where you can get a small book that's only this big and you have a whole, all of the scrolls, all of the text, all of the writings in one place, right? Like, we're going to see it in a little bit, but like, they had whole scrolls, right, that they had to roll out. And one scroll can be from this wall all the way out to this wall, out past this building. You gotta, like, Isaiah is a huge book. Genesis is a huge book, right? So this is one, to have all of those, imagine now all of these scrolls all in one place. This is a massive library that somebody would have to have. And all of these texts are also what? They're all handwritten. So imagine the amount of time and dedication. So, like, not everybody has access to the same stuff, right? It's not just one canon. They don't really have that. What they have is scrolls. Like, I got this scroll over here, this scroll over here, this scroll over here. A canon is something that was later developed, and we'll get into that. But Akron.
So when I said I'll just wait, but I was go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and just read it. Jude 1:14. It says, "And Enoch also, the seventh from Adam, prophesied." And stop right there. How does Jude know that he prophesies? If anytime we read in the scriptures and we hear anybody prophesying something, they wrote it down somewhere. This is how we know this for sure. He prophesied it, so it was written down. Prophesied of these, saying, "Behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000 of his saints." So you ask that question, where would you find this at? Because it's not in the canon that we have right now. Steve just told you the original King James Version has these books. I think you can also look throughout the scriptures and see that there's a whole lot of books that we don't have today.
We're gonna touch on that. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but and I was just, I mean, because she brought it up, and this is what we were just talking about. So I wanted to read that because Jude said Enoch prophesied it, and so if he prophesied it, it was written down somewhere.
All praises. That's fair. Well, let's go back to Sister Kim. Like I said, I'm trying to. I like to get the wheel spinning. I want to get it out in the air because, again, like, it's my job. We're gonna sift through the information. Go ahead.
I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly what I was thinking just prior to you saying that. I was thinking how, like, for me, how I've read the whole Bible, the whole 66 books twice. And unless you do that, you won't even know that there are extra books that are missing. Mm-hmm. There are books that is actually documented in the KJV that they don't have record of. Mm-hmm. You know, and I was just in awe when I saw it, because you know, it would start off saying in a scripture to say, for an example, it will say, "Is it not written in the book of?"
We're gonna go to those places in the next slide. But
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So that's why, for me, and most people know my stance on this, not to be getting into no debate or back and forth, but if I see the book that they took the time to have those scriptures to say those verses, is it not written in the book of? I think I even saw one in the New Testament before. But that's what I'm going by. And I never saw through the whole 66, is it not written in the book of Enoch? Is it not written in the book of Maccabees? Is it not written in the book of Apocrypha? I did not see those. So my thing is, if it said it for the other ones, it should have just easily said it for those few. It didn't have to have it to be considered a missing book to be saying that. It just, well, I'm babbling right now, but that's my point.
I understand what you're saying. My only pushback, like I said, would just be, I'm always leery of an argument from silence, right? Like, if for that, it assumes that every time that a book is supposed to be considered, that it would be mentioned in there, and I don't really have any reason to believe that would be the case, right? Like, it's an argument from silence. It could be or it could not be. But what I can say is, as like I said, we'll start to look more into it. What we can say, and I can guarantee this part, is that the book of First Enoch was a popular book in the days of Jude and in the days of Yahusha and in the days of everybody in the New Testament, that everybody had, like, this, it was common knowledge. Mm-hmm.
Before I forget. And although be that as it may, and that may be true, but that does not mean he subscribed to all of those other books, because all those books aren't divinely given. So that's why I say I'm just going to go by what was divinely given, just to be safe, because, Revelation 22:18 through 21 talks about, and Deuteronomy 4:2 talks about not adding and taking away from the word. No, saying not us per se, we did that, but if we're in our studies and we're adding other books to stuff that, to what I believe that he left us here to go by, and it's enough for salvation. Granted, you want to do history, fine. That's fine. You want to do history. There's nothing against that. But as far as for salvation purposes, I'm just going to go by what it says, because there's eternal consequences for adding and taking away, as I said in Revelation 22:18 through 21. So
okay,
so
I'm gonna table the conversation about adding to and taking away. That's a whole nother thing. And when we get to that part of Torah, it's like she said, it's in Deuteronomy. We'll deal with that. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. For now, and I also say that I agree with the point that you're making about not all of these books are created equal, right? Like, which is why I also wanted to be very specific with me saying that I'm only going for the things that would corroborate and that would, uphold the biblical worldview, because there's a lot of books out there, and not all of them are, like I said, created equal. There's some out there that are 100% absolute garbage, but then there are some that, if at least, like I said, from a historical standpoint, to try to gain understanding of what they're talking about, it might behoove you to consider it. Okay, I'm gonna go to Steve, and then after this, I'm gonna keep it moving.
And that also, who was Jude talking to? Who was his contemporary? What was the culture? We didn't have the New Testament when he was talking. What was the canon that existed at that time? Because we know that the canon's changed several times. Mm-hmm. Pharisees had their canon. The Sadducees didn't even accept the prophets. Mm-hmm. The canon of right now we deal that within the Israel community. Mm-hmm. Oh, the Gospels are 200 years old. That's the closest they get to the Messiah actually being on earth. Mm-hmm. That can't be canon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All praises. Excellent point. So, like I said, what is Jude talking about, and where did he get this account of angels leaving their own habitation, and what did Enoch prophesy? So this is actually a direct quote, like I said, from the book of First Enoch. The book of First Enoch was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, which predates the New Testament writings and is quoted here in the New Testament, proving that they used this book as scripture in their day. All right, so these are the caves, right? This is where you can find, this is where they found these scrolls, right? This is an area in Israel, okay? And the way that the story goes is that there was a Bedouin shepherd trying to find a lost sheep, and he thought one of the sheep might have crawled or jumped off into one of these caves. So he threw a rock, being afraid to go into the cave. He threw a rock into one of these caves, and then he heard what sounded like pottery crashing and breaking, because the rock broke the pottery. So, of course, being a Bedouin and being curious and saying, hold on, wait a minute, what was that? It might be some buried treasure in there, or whatever the case might be. He crawled up in there, and then he found all of these scrolls. Now, once they saw it was all of these scrolls, they was like, man, dang, right? So they end up taking these scrolls. He tells his community, and then the community, they take them in. But what ends up happening is there's an antique dealer that these scrolls come by, and he starts to read these scrolls, and he's like, wait a minute, what is this? And then from their point, the rest of the story goes, right? Now we have this whole library of quote unquote Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, keep in mind that somebody at some point took all these scrolls, and they took the time to hide these scrolls in these caves to preserve them, okay? So I'm gonna leave that there. The Dead Sea Scrolls is a whole nother topic in itself. But I did want us to see, this is a real place, and these scrolls came from a real place, okay? These are the caves, many caves. If you look there, I don't know how well y'all can see it, but you see Jerusalem, and then you see right there in the middle there's that body of water. Well, that body of water right there is the Dead Sea. And then you can see right there at the upper left-hand corner, you'll see Qumran. And that's where those caves are and where they found all of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Ox T.
And hopefully later on maybe on a separate note, like a teaching, you talk about the contemporary. We talk about who's Jude talking to, and the major parties that were in that culture at that time. We said the Sadducees, the Pharisees, the Zealots, and the Essenes. Mm-hmm. The Essenes were the people that were living around this time and that kept these scrolls.
Mm-hmm. All praises, all praises. So right there in the bottom, that's a picture of one of the scroll fragments. It's out. Okay, Toda. It's saying that the internet is out. I don't know if the device died, because I just now thought it wasn't plugged into anything. Not yet. Okay, I should be coming back up here soon. Is anybody looking at the YouTube? Is the YouTube still going? Oh yeah, I haven't put it on yet. I just want to see if once we get back on, if it reconnects or if we gonna have to redo everything back there. Okay. I don't have like I'm not even seeing that Wi-Fi anymore. Mm-mm. Like it was there a second ago, but now I'm not seeing it. Okay, it's just popped back up. Okay, so I'm back up back here. What is it looking like back there? Okay, yeah, you're gonna have to relog it back in. And then what is you? All right, y'all, we gonna make it. We should be back up and going. All praises. Man, all right. Okay, so like I was saying, in the bottom, there's an actual picture of one of these scroll fragments, right? So these scrolls are real, right? So now we know and have proof that first Enoch existed and was being utilized to form the biblical worldview of the writers of the New Testament, as evidenced by Jude and Peter. So this alone proves that first Enoch had to exist before the New Testament. With this being said, archaeology verifies this with the findings of the Dead Sea Scrolls. So portions of First Enoch and the Book of Jubilees were found in the caves of Qumran, untouched for thousands of years. These scrolls date back to at least 100 BCE, and scholars accept that the earliest portions of the first book of Enoch come from at least 300 to 200 BCE, right? So we're talking about 3 centuries, 300 years before Mashiach ever even was a thing, right? So this dates them as at least a couple hundred years, like I said, older than the New Testament text. And it's worth noting that the book of Enoch has always been included in the Ethiopian canon of the Bible, right? So the Ethiopian canon, they always had this, right? So the biblical canon has not always been as concrete as it is today. And you can even see that, like Akoti was saying, in the scriptures itself, right? So Joshua chapter 10, verse 13, so the sun stood still and the moon stopped till the nation avenged itself upon their enemies. Is this not written in the book of Jasher or the book of Yashar? Thus, the sun stopped in the midst of the heavens and did not hasten to go down for an entire day. So there's a book of Jasher, a book of Yashar that existed, but it's not anywhere found in the canon. But in the day of the writer of Joshua, they had it. Right? 2 Samuel 1 and 18. And he ordered the bow to be taught to the children of Yehuda or Judah. See, it is written in the book of Jasher again. Right? So 2 Samuel and Joshua, y'all realize that those are hundreds of years apart, right? Like the days of Joshua and the days of Samuel, like those are hundreds of years apart. And they're still using Jasher. right? So it was a part of this canon. It just was up until a certain point where it fell off and it disappeared, right? First Chronicles 29 and 29. And the acts of King David, first and last, see, they are written in the book of Samuel the seer, right? So now we have the writings in the books of Samuel, 1st and 2nd Samuel, right, where we read about David. But this is where it gets interesting. In the book of Nathan the prophet, so David is written about in this book of Nathan the prophet. Where is that, right? And in the book of Gad the seer, where is that, right? Sister Kim.
So all this time, I thought Jasher was part of the canon. So why wouldn't it be? Because it's referenced in the 66. Why wouldn't it be of the canon? Is there a reason for that?
Absolutely. The ones who determine the canon, like there's a process to determining the canon, right? So the canon that we're using today was established primarily by the Council of Nicaea. And then as Ak was bringing out, now the Council of Nicaea, that's the Roman Catholic, that's the Romans in like the 3rd century AD, right? This is 300 years, 400 years after Mashiach has came and gone. That now it's in the hands of the Romans, and Constantine gathered up everybody together, and they call these the ecumenical councils, where they all came together and they said, we got to establish what's right and what's wrong for the quote unquote Catholic Church. Now, if you go and you start reading into like the Council of Nicaea and these documents, they tell you how they were having these Constantine's, he had a scribe, the scribe by the name of Eusebius, and he records in his writings, well, the canon is not quite yet established yet. We're trying to still decide and determine what's what, because we have this group of people over here that are using these books, these letters from Timothy, these letters from Paul, these letters from Peter. But then we have these over here that don't have these, so they say, no, we don't use those. So they all came together in this Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, where they said this is going to be the canon, right? And now that canon included the Apocrypha. And so then you get to, now we're talking about 325 AD. In 1611 AD, 1300 years after that, now we get to the King James, and the King James has the Apocrypha in it, but then because the Protestants have a way of looking at things, they said, well, we're not going to deal with the Apocrypha, we're going to take that even out of the King James. So it's always been this battle and this debate, but the decision of what was canon and what wasn't, it ultimately was always determined by the people who had control over it.
So is it safe to say that because Joshua references Jasher and 2 Samuel references Jasher, shouldn't that originally be a part of the 66? So shouldn't that be like 67? Today.
I'm not going to fight that. Like I said, for me, the way that I even look at a canon is, this was something that men put together, and they decided, it was men that decided to say, we're going to put all of these together. At one point in time, Martin Luther didn't even want, Revelation, the book of Hebrews, like all of that stuff, those last like 4 or 5 books at the end, which is why they're at the end, Martin Luther almost cut those. So, but they all voted and was like, we're going to keep them.
That's who I was getting ready to say was Martin Luther, because they was battling over the books. That's actually who Martin Luther King is named after. Is his father went and named himself after that particular person that took the canons out of the Bible. Mm-hmm. So they existed, but they took them out. They were, it's a whole thing about him, how they took canons out of the Bible to decide. Basically, it was so they didn't think the people was ready to see what was in there. They just kind of wanted us to see what they wanted us to see. So they took what they took what they thought that we could handle. Well, and to match it up with their paganism. Basically, that's what it is.
So yeah, the story of what is canon and what is not, and what that even means, that's a whole conversation and topic of itself. But briefly, I did want to at least touch on it. It's not quite
I just want to say one more thing. What's the okay? There's references in the Bible saying that there's other books. It's letting you know that there's other books.
Second Esdras.
This in.
Yeah, second Esdras.
So there's more than the Apocrypha.
We're gonna go to Steve and then we're gonna move.
Just real quick, the definition of canon is an ecclesiastical rule or law enacted by the council or a competent authority in the Roman Catholic Church, approved by the Pope.
Yeah, all praises. So, like I said, I really want to move on. All praises. After Sister Kim.
This is it. But when you said that, the Most High allowed it. Ultimately, He allowed it, and for His reasons. And that's why I would say, basically, leave well enough alone, because He wouldn't moved on man's heart to take out and leave what He wanted left or whatever. Take what, that's how I see that. So. Yeah, that's
so. Like I said, my pushback to that would be He has given us all free will and the ability to choose and do right or wrong, and people do wrong all the time. Like He never approves of wrong, but people do wrong all the time. So like even with that, like this is the reason why we got to study to show ourselves approved. Like the books and the things are still out there if we are seeking after them, because we don't know. It might come a point in time where, and they're doing this stuff now with changing words even within the canon. To NIV don't read the same as even the King James does, and so they don't. It's not that the Most High is in agreement or He's approving it. It's just that man is doing what man do, what they want.
Just want to add to that point. You think about Ethiopia; they were one country in Africa that never got colonized.
Mm-hmm.
Their Bible was still put together. Those books are still in their Bible.
Mm-hmm. All praises.
They have also, that's the oldest Bible that's in existence today.
Mm-hmm. All praises. So, with this being said, throughout this study, we'll be exploring some of these corroborating extra-biblical texts at times to better understand the context of the story of Noah and the other patriarchs. So here's my disclaimer, all right? So my goal is not to tell you what to think. However, my endeavor is to provide as much historical and textual evidence as the Father directs to help us better grasp the context and point of view from which the scriptures were written. All right, so from there, you will be responsible for deciding what you choose to believe. My goal is that you are as informed as possible as you grow in your own belief. Remember to study as the Bereans did, and study to show yourself approved at the end of the day. All right. So I'm not here to tell you accept this or don't accept this. And I do agree with the point that if all you got is the canon, that it is enough for your salvation. It's definitely enough of that. Like none of what we talking about right now is that's not a matter of salvation. Right. So like I'm putting that out there. But like I said, with that being said, as we continue, let's all be mindful and respectful of one another, and keep in mind that we are live and have an audience online that may or may not have the same point of view as we do. Right? So in all things, we want to make sure that Elohim is esteemed, and that when others see us, they have a reason to give Him praise. All right, so let's continue. We almost done. I'm going to start putting my foot on the gas because it's getting late. Yeah, I'm gonna start moving. All right. So who and what are the Nephilim? Right. Genesis 6:4 talks about these Nephilim that were on the earth in those days. Right. And they seem to be from the sons of Elohim and the daughters of Adam, right? So based on what we see here in Genesis 6:4, the Nephilim are apparently the offspring of the daughters of Adam and the sons of Elohim. The offspring will be known as the mighty men of old, men of renown, or men of fame or name. Is it safe to infer that these men were different than the regular sons of Adam, and that something about the union between the sons of Elohim and the daughters of Adam made them stronger and more mighty? Like, is it safe to say that they are literally stronger in the earth because there's something that's different about them? Okay, all praises. So, y'all know them, right? Perseus, Hercules or Heracles, Gilgamesh, right? It's all these legends when you start to look at it across like all these cultures where they have a story where they say that some quote unquote Elohim had relations with the daughters of men, and they had offspring, and these offspring became these quote unquote men of renown and these mighty men in the earth. These, like, you find this all around everywhere you go, right? So is it worth noting that mythology from around the world and back seems to have this sort of story in common? There were some sort of sons of Elohim that had relations with women, and their offspring became mighty men of renown. All right. So the Nephilim were also mentioned later in the book of Numbers, and they were regarded as giants or men of great stature. All right, I'm going to jump down to Numbers 13 and 33. And we saw there the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, and the Nephilim, the sons of Anak of the Nephilim, and we were like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and so were we in their eyes. Right, so it was a lot bigger than. And remember, Steve brought it out earlier when we was looking in Genesis 6 and 4, how it said that Nephilim was in the earth, and giants was in the earth in that day and after. Right? Okay. So a Nephil or Nephal, properly a feller, that is a bully or a tyrant, a giant. Okay. From Nephal. Now I want us to pay attention to what's highlighted. To cast down or to cast lots, to divide by lot, to cause, to let, to make, ready to fall. So literally, if you was to translate this literally, they are known as fallen ones, right? The fallen, okay? What is there about dividing by lot? I wonder what that could have anything to do with. Okay. So Matthew 24 and 37. All right. Y'all slow me down if I need to slow down, but like I said, I'm going to keep moving. But as the days of Noah were, so also shall the coming of the Son of Adam be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark and knew not until the flood came and took them all away, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. So here's a question to ponder. Is it possible that what they were eating and drinking and how they were marrying in the days of Noah contributed to the judgment that took place? Right? So it's not so much a thing about eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, but maybe it was something about the kind of marriages that they was having and the kind of eating and drinking, what they was eating and drinking that might have been problematic. Right? So the account of First Enoch, right? First Enoch goes into detail about this. That's why I'm bringing it out, right? So Enoch 6 and 1, it says, and it came to pass when the sons there were born to them fair and beautiful daughters, and the angels, the sons of heaven, saw them and desired them. So far, so good. No problem with what we already have kind of seen in the biblical text, right? It says, and they said to one another, come, let us choose for ourselves wives from the children of men, and let us beget for ourselves children. Now, let me ask y'all remember what Mashiach said about the angels? He said, neither do they do what? He said, they don't marry or give in marriage. Y'all remember that? So y'all see how this can be problematic and that they're doing something that they're not supposed to be doing, right? Okay, all praises. So, and Semyaza, who was their leader, said to them, I fear that you may not wish this deed to be done, and that I alone will pay for this great sin. And they all answered him and said, let us swear an oath. Now, I'm going to go back. For the word for Nephal, notice it's to cast lots, to divide the lot. Okay. He says, let us all swear on oath and bind one another with curses, so not to alter this plan, but to carry out this plan effectively. Then they all swore together and bound one another with curses to it. Okay. Chapter 7, starting at verse 1. And they took wives for themselves, and everyone chose for himself each. And they began to go into them and were promiscuous with them. And they taught them charms and spells. And they showed them the cutting of roots and trees. And they became pregnant and bore large giants. And their height was 3,000 cubits, until men were unable to sustain them. So the regular people couldn't keep them fed. Is how Enoch is portraying this, okay? And the giants turned against them in order to devour them. So then these quote unquote giants, as Enoch is saying it, they began to, feast on the sons of men. And they began to sin against birds and against animals and against reptiles and against fish. And they devoured one another's flesh and drank the blood from it. Then the earth complained about the lawless ones. Okay? So this is how Enoch, the story of Enoch is portraying this. Okay? That now, mind you, I asked in the beginning that it had to be real, real bad and stuff had to really be out of whack for the Father to be like, wash this all out, get rid of all of it, and I'm going to just start over. Animals as well. Like, the animals as well, he destroyed. All right, so, y'all ever seen a blood sausage? Yep. Like, over in, like, places in Europe and stuff. They still do this stuff to this day. Like, it's still as it was in the days of Noah, last I checked, right? All right, so the book of Jasher says it this way. And the wife of Lamech conceived and bare him a son at the revolution of the year. And Methuselah called his name Noah, saying the earth was in his days at rest and free from corruption. And Lamech his father called his name Menachem, saying, this one shall comfort us in our works and miserable toil on the earth, which Elohim had cursed. And the child grew up and was weaned, and he went in the way of his father, Methuselah, perfect and upright with Elohim. And all the sons of men departed from the ways of Yahuwah in those days, as they multiplied upon the face of the earth with sons and daughters, and they taught one another their evil practices, and they continued sinning against Yahuwah. So now you're starting to see where it started with these ones that came down, and now you're seeing that men catching on with this wickedness, and then now they reproducing the wickedness and doing just as bad as the Nephilim, right? And their judges and rulers went to the daughters of men and took their wives by force from their husbands according to their choice. And the sons of men in those days took from the cattle of the earth and the beasts of the field and the fowls of the air, and taught the mixture of animals of one species with the other. So now are we starting to see why the earth because they're manipulating the creation in ways that it shouldn't have been manipulated, right? Now, I'm gonna keep going. Have y'all seen that new thing that Tom Brady got going? Where he got a dog walking around that was a clone of his old dog, and they said that this dog was made without using the seed of, it's just a clone of the old dog. And they implanted that somehow in another dog, and then, or a petri dish or something, I don't know, and got this dog. And it's a copy, like it's a copy of the dog that died. Like, they messing with, which that's a whole nother conversation when we start talking about that MR. We don't want to get banned off of YouTube, right? But like, just pay attention to what's going on. As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the end. I Steve.
Yeah, and then like the overall sense, even with these, like trying to make better what Yah had already created, and trying to extend life. And this is actually a thing going on in today, is the transhumanism, where people want to come up with better ways to becoming human. These prosthetics now are actually make you stronger, where it was just something back then just to put something to be able to walk. Now you could actually run faster. And the soldiers that's being used, that how it's being used militarily, genetically altering what Yah has already made, created. So it's a continuation of what's going on back then. But then what about these things that they're talking about, these aliens coming to now, and how they're going to try to do a mass conversion? They call it the alien gospel as far as the scientific community. And it could go to a bigger thing, but as far as the days of Noah, as it was in those days, so shall it be again. It's just things that we need to keep an open eye about, like open mind about how we're being, like they're stopping to print the money. Mm-hmm. Physical money. I think they just recently they printed the last penny. Mm-hmm. No more pennies. Mm-hmm. So we're going to a cashless society. Mm-hmm. I'll land right there.
All praises. Like, keep in mind, gonna finish reading this, and then I'm gonna land the plane. All right. So, verse 17, it says, "And every man made unto himself an Elohim, and they robbed and plundered every man his neighbor as well as his relative, and they corrupted the earth, and the earth was filled with violence. And their judges and rulers went to the daughters of men and took their wives by force from their husbands according to their choice. And the sons of men in those days took from the cattle of the earth and the beasts of the field and the fowls of the air, and taught the mixture of animals of one species with the other, in order therewith to provoke Yahuwah. And Elohim saw the whole earth, and that it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted its way upon the earth, all men and all animals. And Yahuwah said, I will blot out man that I created from the face of the earth, yes, from the man to the birds of the air, together with the cattle and beasts of the field, for I repent, or I relent rather, that I made them." All right, so in the back, Sister Chrissy. Okay. All praises.
Well, do you want to keep reading it? I can.
No. We done. I'm about to land the plane. So yeah, we done.
So I just wanted to say, like, in the days of Noah, when someone was taken, like how, okay, so the people that got on the boat or whatever, the ark, them was the ones that survived, and the other people, them was the ones that died. So when it said, as in the days of Noah, so the people that got on, so the people that, okay, so how I say it's going to be somebody in the field, one going to be taken, one going to be left, or whatever. So the one that's taken, the taken people are the ones that's going to die, and the ones that's going to be left is the ones that are going to be left here, right?
All praises. So it's right there on the screen, what she's talking about. All praises. So what she's saying is, here in verse 37, as the days of Noah, so also shall the coming of the son of Adam be. All right. So it says, for as they were in the days before the flood, eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day of Noah, entered into the ark, and they did not know until the flood came and took them all away. So in this case, the ones that were taken, the ones that are taken are the ones that died.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. So in this time, when he's saying as it is in the days of Noah, so if you're taken this time, you're gonna die. That's not a good thing to be taken. Right. That's what I'm trying to say.
So there's this whole thing. There's this whole thing about Left Behind, right?
That's what I'm trying to make clear.
Like, the Tim LaHaye series, which is Left Behind. Like I know I'm gonna ruffle some feathers with this, and I'm not trying to open no can of worms. But the point that she's making. The point that she's making, the point that she's making is on point, right? The whole Left Behind concept is not something that was in the scriptures. It is literally from the Left Behind movie series, right? Yeah. So the Left Behind, in that case, they were saying you don't want to be left behind, but what she's saying is, yeah, that the ones that like in that scenario, the ones that was taken is a good thing, but in actually what Mashiach is talking about, the ones that was taken, they died, right? You want to be left in the field, or you wanted to be left in it, like that was the point that she's making, and it's on point. Okay, go ahead.
So is anyone considering the great tribulation of all the destruction that's coming, and those who are left here that's going to have to survive that? There are some that's going to be martyred. So if you're left here, you're going to have to face the beast system, the mark, and not able to buy or sell. So those who are left here, that's what you're going to be up against. Okay.
So hold on, wait 1 second before y'all start.
You will be martyred. You will be martyred.
Let me go back.
And that's a badge of honor. Now, let me say that. Those who are, die for Mashiach, that's a badge of honor. But those who will not be able to be strong enough, and they think right now they will be, and they feel they're gonna, not take that chip. I shouldn't have probably said that online, but they think they're gonna be strong right now saying that, but without the Ruach, that's just words. And a lot of people, it's going to come to the time where he's going to divide the wheat and tares, and those who thought they were he's going to separate them, and those are going to be the ones who are going to be left here and have to be facing the Antichrist.
Okay. So hold on one second. Everybody.
Okay, and that he that endures to the end shall be saved, and everybody's end is not the same.
So
some people are dying right now, and that's their end.
So hold on. Can y'all hold on 1 second? Can we hold on 1 second?
We're enduring now.
Can we hold on?
We endure until we disappear.
So young man, do me a favor. Don't hand that mic to anybody. Right? Don't hand that. We're gonna hold on 1 second. We're going to pause 1 second. Disclaimer. My goal is not to tell anybody what to think. However, it is my endeavor to provide as much historical and textual evidence as the Father directs to help us better grasp the context and point of view from which the scriptures were written. From there, you will be responsible for deciding what you choose to believe. My goal is that you are as informed as possible as you grow in your own belief. All right, so everybody in here, let's agree, we all growing in our belief. All right, we all in different places. We all coming from different places. We all trying to grow and get to the same destination though. All right. With that being said, remember, study as the Bereans did. It said that the Bereans studied to find out the things, whether or not what they was hearing was true, right? That's your responsibility. Study and show yourself approved at the end of the day, right? As we continue, let's all be mindful and respectful of one another, and keep in mind that we are live and have an audience online that may or may not have the same point of view as we do. In all things, we want to make sure that Elohim is esteemed, and that when others see us, they have a reason to give him praise. All right, so now, look, let's continue. We're going to reset, right? It's different points of view, all right? So, and it's all fair. I just want to make sure that as we're going throughout the conversation, that we don't get lost in the weeds, and then it becomes a thing where now we don't have shalom in the room, right? So that's all I'm trying to do. All right, so I'm going to go Ox Steve, and then who was after Ox Steve? Because now I forgot. Okay, then we're going to go to Sister Allison. All right.
Khan, no, definitely understand what Sister, elder sister, whatever, I forgot. Now I'm just having so many things, Mama. But, it's, we look at what Mashiach said, but then he also, from the other perspective is as it was in the days of Lot was taken out of Sodom and Gomorrah. We're told to, in Revelations, get out of her, my children. Right? And so we also know that Elijah was taken up and Noah was sent. We're going to have to go through the wilderness. Okay, so there's several things that we were all going to be tested at in different perspective, different nations. So not everybody's in Babylon. So
let's go Sister Allison, and then we'll go back to Sister Kim. And if we keep going, we might have to end the stream, and then this will be for the room. But go ahead.
I'm going to say all the things that's going on now, I'm going to say we're already in the end. That nobody is peeping all the stuff, all the death and destruction and the things that is happening. We've kind of been there for a minute, and it's getting worse and worse every day. We're getting revved up for a lot of things. Just looking at the person that's in the White House, he's leading us right there, and no, I didn't say his name. I didn't say his name, but we're being led, and it's everything is already here. We're already there. It's just counting on like she said, endurance. We have to endure and be ready for what's coming up.
They fought wars over a lack of bread, and they just ended SNAP benefits and all this stuff, right? Which I think gonna be the climate is about to go to if it's a lack of resources. I don't know. That's just my take on it. But go ahead.
So, land backing off of Ox Steve. When he brought a brought up Enoch, that kind of jogged my memory, because in this context of taken, he was taken up to heaven without dying. Okay, we all in agreement on that. Same with Elijah. He was caught up, taken in a whirlwind, alive. Okay, so just like you said, ain't nothing new under the sun. So yeah, in the flood they were taken and killed, but in this context of taken, that was a good thing. Both of them were taken up into heaven alive. And we should also know that the marriage supper is in heaven. It's not going to be here. So that's the perk of being ready when he says he's coming in an hour of no man will know, and as a thief in the night. So that remnant that is ready for that marriage supper, everybody's not going to be there, because he said in Revelation 19:9, blessed are those who are called to the marriage supper of the Lamb. Okay? So some versions say invited, but everybody's not going to be at that, because there's certain things that still has to happen before his actual final coming. So that's just part of it, because there's a ruler that's going to rule this world. He's going to wear out the saints. It's so much that has to transpire up until his final coming, where we're going to finally all end up together in New Jerusalem. So taken, yeah, I'm not knocking taken in Noah's the flood. It was bad, in the flood, but there's context for certain things for taking in other precepts that says it's a good thing. And like I said, everybody's not going to the marriage supper.
Okay, so I saw my man here. I'm gonna go there first, and then I'm coming back to you. Okay, and Sis Dobby, I'm gonna say shalom to everybody online, because we're going into a whole nother conversation. All right. And what I do want to do is I want to say this. Right now we brainstorming and we getting things out in the room, right? But there's going to come a point in time where everything that's being said, I'm not co-signing or going against. I'm not agreeing. I'm not going against anything here. It's not my job to speak on what I believe. My job, like I said, is to provide the proof and the evidence. We'll cross that bridge when we get there for all of these topics at some point, Father willing, right? So we'll be, like I said in the beginning of these lessons, right? Like certain questions, they deserve a certain amount of attention and a certain diligence. Y'all see how slow we walking through these scriptures to gather, because there's a lot of routes that can be taken. So my goal is to make sure that whatever we're doing, if y'all hearing it from me, I'm gonna be as thorough as I possibly can and give each topic the respect. But I'm listening to the conversation. Like right now, it's my job to listen to understand, not necessarily to respond. So where are we going? There we go. We going here and then we going there. Khan, hey, shalom, y'all. We love y'all. And yeah.
Shalom.